Good evening, and welcome to That's the Ticket, a discussion about law and politics that will shape our future. I would like to thank everybody that made it out tonight in person to come and to have this discussion with us. And I would also like to thank you who have joined us online. We'd love for you to be a part of the comments in the comment section so that you can share your thoughts, ideas, questions. I'd like to start by saying that tonight's presentation is going to be a nonpartisan presentation on voter education. We are not telling you who to vote for or what to vote for, but we are encouraging you to use your vote. We will have discussions and we will share our personal opinions in some spaces, but that is in no way a mandate for you to make that decision. And Hope of Glory is not endorsing any particular campaign or proposition. So thank you for joining us. Let's talk politics. So the election year is upon us. And we're at slide 1. The election year is upon us. Let's vote with knowledge and talk about the presidential election. We're going to have an overview. So, key issues for the presidential election. The 2024 U.S. presidential election is approaching, and we're going to talk about policies, candidates, voter engagement, and I'm going to sort of give like a presentation on some things that we should be considering and maybe some information that might be helpful in your voting. And at some point, if you feel like you have a question, please do raise your hand. You don't have to wait until the end of the presentation to do that. You can raise your hand and I'll pause for you. There are 2 mics that Corey has. If you have a question, please make sure that you do get one of the mics. I'm going to move on to slide 3, actually. And it's a quote from my forever president, Barack Obama. And he says that there's no such thing as a vote that doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a vote that doesn't matter. So I wanted to take it classroom style right quick, just for a quick second. So I'm giving us a warm-up. We're going to have a warm-up. All right? I see a lot of you got paper out. A lot of you got pens. So this is going to be helpful for you to do this warm-up. On slide 5, which pastor is going to share with us slide 5, there's going to be a task that I'd ask for you to do. I would like for you to write this number and cross out the number necessary to make this number 1 million. Write this number and cross out the number necessary to make this number 1 million. No questions. Okay, so we got comments. My eyes are crossing. How many zeros is it? Okay, so mom says there's supposed to be 6 in there. Okay, and how many is on the board is the question. It's 10. So I see people, they go into the good old Google, a lot of different things. So people are writing it down. Cool. So that's very helpful. Okay, now we're going to move to slide 6. This one, you won't be able to Google this answer. Draw a figure that is a square in shape, divided in half by drawing a straight line from its northeast corner to its southeast corner. And then divide it once more by drawing a broken line in the middle of its western side to the middle of its eastern side. Draw a figure that's a square in shape, divided in half by drawing a straight line from its northeast corner to its southeast corner. Then divide it one more time by drawing a broken line in the middle of its western side to the middle of its eastern side. What are all these faces I'm seeing out here? Right, hold up. I'm glad that I'm seeing the faces that I'm seeing, and I'm glad that I'm getting the reactions that I'm getting, because these questions are directly drawn from the tests that were required for you to vote before the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These are 2 direct questions that were used in the state of Louisiana that were required of voters to answer before they could vote. So when we think about what it took for us to get here, I'm moving to slide 7, voting came at a cost. It wasn't just easy for us to get there voting. In slide 7, we see John Lewis, and we see talking about good trouble. He's at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and some of you may be familiar with that because y'all are seasoned. All right, vintage. I love it. Mint condition, right? And this caption says, at the east of the bridge, the marchers were confronted by state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and posse men. The marchers were given a 2-minute warning to disperse. And when Williams asked them to speak with the officer, he was told that there was nothing to discuss. 1 minute and 5 seconds after the 2-minute warning, the troops advanced using clubs, gas, and bullwhips. The cost of voting. I wanted to share this context when we have this discussion because a lot of us may have friends or family members. A lot of people may have friends or family members that are considering whether or not they will participate in this election. But it's important that we don't miss the history and the context of why we're voting, about how our vote matters, about how we can use our voices. So there are important steps for the election. Next slide. Step 1 is going to be voter registration. Register to vote and participate actively. Step 2 is candidate research, which we are here to do tonight. Research the candidates and their policy. For those of you guys who are watching online, we're glad you're with us, but there's been some rich conversation even in the room as we've been talking about these things, and we're going to continue that dialogue. And then it's going to be step 3 is casting your vote, vote casting on election day. I'm moving to the next slide. What are some key deadlines for the November 2024 election? I want to make sure everybody is aware of these things. So in-person and early voting happens from October 7th to November 4th in the state of California. In-person and at voting location on election day is November 5th. You can vote up until October 21st online by 11:59 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, or by mail postmarked by October 21st. This information was pulled directly from the California Secretary of State website. Voting deadlines. Early voting varies by location. Return ballot by mail must be postmarked by November 5th, and return ballot in person November 5th by 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And California sends ballots to actively registered voters between October 7th through October 26th. So if you haven't seen your ballot yet, if you haven't seen it by the 26th, it's time to start searching. All right, so you should have your ballots and things of that nature coming to you now. I wanted to share these 2 QR codes with you so that you can use your voice. And most of you in the room have already probably done this, but if you have not done this, the QR code on the left is how you can register to vote now. You just take your camera, pointing at it, and it will take you directly to a link. If you're watching online, you can use that QR code as well. And if you believe you are registered to vote already, but you are unsure, as a matter of fact, I would recommend it, if you haven't received a ballot in the mail, check this election year, because a lot of people think that they are registered to vote but have been removed from registration for some different things. So check and see if you are registered to vote, and you can find the information on how to do that by using this QR code. Moving to the next slide, California voter eligibility. A United States citizen and a resident of California, 18 years of age or older on election day, not currently serving a state or federal prison term for the conviction of a felony, and not currently found mentally incompetent to vote by a court. For more information, you can look up voting rights and persons subject to conservatorship. Now, I know we haven't always all been saved, and some of us have a past, and if you do, I'm moving to the next slide. The next slide is entitled Voting After Lockup, and there is a cat that has just walked into the church. All right, he went back outside. All right, yeah, I'm certain. Voting After Lockup. So, on the side in green for go, want to make sure that you know that because you have a felony does not mean that you are permanently unable to vote. So, you can vote in a local detention facility if you're serving a misdemeanor sentence, and a misdemeanor never affects your right to vote, because jail time is a condition of probation. You can still vote. Or serving a felony jail sentence, awaiting trial, on parole, on probation, a mandatory supervision, a post-release community supervision, on federal supervised release, a person with a juvenile wardship adjudication, they can all vote. Here's where you cannot vote. If you are currently in state prison, federal prison, and then a local detention center, once you have finished serving the term, your right to vote is restored. However, you must register online. You can find that at registertovote.ca.gov or by filling out a paper voter registration card. Next slide. Where's my ballot? So if you haven't received your ballot, if you've been looking at the mail, if your auntie has been saying, where's the ballot for my name, you can track your mail by going to where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov, and you'll receive an automatic email or text message for you to be able to find your ballot. I'm moving through these so that we can get to the good discussion. What do I do if I suspect foul play at the polls? What if I get to the poll and something? I went one year and I really thought, like, this ain't right. I need to call somebody. Well, you can call the NAACP, and I forgot to close that parenthesis, but you can call the NAACP or use a QR code to go to their website and fill out a report to say something is wrong. You can also contact the Department of Justice. So it depends on, some people like, I want to talk to my people about it, use the NAACP. Some people say, I want to make sure that the people with names and titles get it, go on and call the Department of Justice. There's a question on the floor. Corey, could you take that microphone? Beck, you got to use the mic for the people online.
Do you know how long it takes for them to get back with you? You don't want the election to be over and then they call in.
That's a great question. So during my last local election, I had trouble at the polling place, and I was actually able to talk to someone live in person, and they were able to like take a note of it and say, we are tracking this and we'll get back to you. So you can talk to somebody while it's happening, and they will make a note so that your your vote will still count while they're
So what do? You just go on and vote? And
I voted absentee in that case. So like they couldn't find me. I was at my correct polling place. I had looked online. I double checked my address. I called to make sure it wasn't at my previous address, and they were like, yeah, we have no record of you. And they were like, well, you should vote absentee. And I was like, well, how do I know my vote's going to get counted? I was like, I'm not going nowhere till I cast my vote. And so I casted my vote, but I casted my vote also making record of it to the authorities so that they can make sure that my vote was cast. Thank you for that question. All right, I'm moving to the next slide, if there are no more questions at this moment. Key issues. As we approach the 2024 presidential elections, voters must consider critical or crucial issues like economy, healthcare, climate change, and it is real, alongside the candidates' views and policies that will shape America's future. All right. I'm moving on to the next slide. I've got a lot of QR codes for you tonight because I want you to be able to take these resources with you. So I got this from the NAACP website, and there are 2 voter guides. If you use these QR codes and go to the picture, the one on the left is going to be a presidential voter guide, and it puts candidate Kamala Harris and candidate Donald Trump side by side, and it lists the key issues and where they stand on those key issues so that you can see exactly what their opinions are on those issues. And then with the QR code on the right, it does the same thing for Walz and Vance, and it is a nonpartisan voter guide. It just shows what their stances are on those things. We have a question on the floor.
I just verified. There is something called same-day registrant.
Okay.
That you can register the same day.
Thank you.
And you're called a same-day voter registration on election day. So you go to the poll and tell them you need to register. You can register there, and it'll be absentee ballot.
Thank you so much. So same-day registrant. Maybe that's what they did for me, and I didn't know that they were doing for me. Same-day registrant. You got that online. You can register on the same day, and they will cast your absentee ballot for you. Thank you for that. So again, 2 voter guides is going to show where people stand on the issues side by side. You can put these in your notes. You can bookmark these on your phones so that you can see exactly where each candidate for president and each candidate for vice president stand on each of the issues. I'll leave it up for another second. She was doing her research. And she was contributing to the conversation. I appreciate you. And while we're online, if you have some things that you'd like us to say, or if you'd like to bring to our attention, you're welcome to share those things with us online. And as we see them become available, we'll share them. I'm going to deputize my mom because she always watches Facebook as well. So thank you, Mom, in advance. Moving to the next slide now. All right. This election will determine the direction of our country for years to come, focusing on unity and progress for all citizens. So I put this slide here to remind us that whomever is in this next seat, they're definitely going to have some ways that they're going to be shaping policy. For example, the Supreme Court. Right? Wu Chow was exactly what I said when I thought about that. So whomever is in this next seat is going to influence whom our next Supreme Court justices are. And as we saw when it came to questions about autonomy and agency over one's body, Supreme Court decisions have been overturned, like, for example, Roe versus Wade. So we want to be able to make sure that if we vote somebody in office, that whomever they are, using that voter registration guide that I was just referencing, that we know where they stand on these issues, so that when they put their Supreme Court justices in place, they will move us in the direction that we want our country to go to, rather than dismantling our democracy and changing things that we have fought in landmark decisions in the courts. So let's talk about the propositions. Moving to the nitty gritty, to the next slide. So quick reference guide. So this comes directly from the general election. Sorry, I've been at school all day. General education. The general election ballot book here. And I only picked out the hot topic issues. The quick reference guide covers propositions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. And they'll be on the slides. I know I said them fast, but each slide, there's going to be 2 slides dedicated to each of these things. And we'll talk about what they mean, and if there is discussion as we go through them, because a lot of people I want to invite us to have a dialogue about how we feel on these things, or provide clarity to someone who may not understand it in the terms that it's written. So Prop 2 authorizes $10 billion in general obligation bonds for repair, upgrade, and construction of facilities at K through 12 public schools, community colleges, and career technical education programs, including improvement of health and safety conditions. Classroom upgrades, requires annual audits, fiscal impact, increased state cost about $500 million for 35 years to repay the bond. Supporters are the California Teachers Association, California Nurses Organization, Community College League of California. Opponents, Howard Jarvis's Taxpayers Association. Here's what a yes vote means. A yes on 2 means that this measure, the state could borrow $10 billion to build new or renovate existing public schools and community college facilities. A no vote means that the state could not borrow $10 billion to build new or renovate existing public schools and community college facilities. All right. I'm going to go to Prop 3 and tell what those mean, and then we'll talk about the pros and cons of 2 and 3. Prop 3, constitutional right to marriage, legislative constitutional amendment. Amends California Constitution to recognize fundamental right to marry regardless of sex or race. Removes language in California Constitution stating that marriage is only between a man and a woman. The fiscal impact is a change in revenues or costs for state and local governments. Sierra Pacific Synod is in support of this, and the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Dolores Huerta Foundation, Equality California. Opponents, Jonathan Keller, California Family Council, and Reverend Tanner DeBella. A yes vote means that language in the California Constitution will be updated to match who can currently marry. There would be no change in who can marry. A no vote means that language in the California Constitution would not be changed. There would be no change in who can marry. So, yes is updated to match currently who can marry. No, no change. And let's talk about pros and cons of each on the next slide. So, back to Prop 2. The pros arguments are many schools and community colleges are outdated and need basic health and safety repairs and upgrades to prepare students for college and careers and retain and attract quality teachers. Prop Prop 2 needs and requires strict taxpayer accountability so funds are spent as promised with local control. The cons. It will increase our bond obligations by $10 billion, which will cost taxpayers an estimated $18 billion when repaid with interest. A bond works like a government credit card. Paying off the credit card requires that the government spend more of your tax dollars. And then for Prop 3, Californians' freedom to marry regardless of their race or gender. The language from the California Constitution stating marriage is only between a man and a woman would be those who are pro. Proposition 3 reinforces California's commitment to civil rights and protects personal freedom. The cons removes all rules for marriage, opening the door to child marriage, incest, and polygamy. It changes California's constitution, even though same-sex marriage is already legal, by making moms and dads optional. It puts children at risk. It says this careless measure harms families and societies, and it asks you to vote no. This is just what the voter guide says. All right? Are there any poignant points that we want to bring up in discussion about Props 2 or 3? It does change. So it doesn't change the language. There would be no change in who can marry. If you vote yes, then it does change who can marry. Because right now, it says that anybody can marry in California. But if you change it, what happens? Let me go back to the reference so I can read what it said. So if it passes, it removes all rules for marriage, opening the door to child marriage, incest, and polygamy. It changes California's constitution, even though same-sex marriage is already legal, by making moms and dads optionals. So anybody have any insights on that? If you say no, it stays the same. If you say yes, then they change, the language doesn't change. Everybody can still marry, but it opens it up. They basically have slid something in there for family marriage. Boys and boys, girls and girls, cousin and cousin, brother, children. You can marry your daughter. Yeah.
If you say yes, the federal government already has changed the language. California still has the strict language that a marriage is between man and woman. So if you say yes to the new proposition, then that language will change.
Let me see. So let me go back.
So I don't want to say
we're
that
going back.
Be
Listen.
confused. It's just yes. No, yes means you change the language so that California right now language is different than federal.
Yeah, so a yes vote means language in California Constitution would be updated, so changed,
Right.
to match who can currently marry.
To federal,
Right.
It matches the federal.
There would be no change in who can marry.
And see, I don't like that language
Yeah.
on the guide, because
Yeah.
what it basically says is that if you say yes, California then will change its language to match federal, which means same gender marriage is okay.
Right.
That's basically what they're trying to change.
Yeah.
And if you vote no, then California language stays the same, which means in California it'll only be legal for a male and female to
Right.
marry.
Right. So they made the language confusing.
They talk about everything, but then they put that little paragraph on there.
Mm-hmm.
There would be no change.
Okay. So a yes would be that the language will be updated, and then a no would be that the language would not be updated. Yeah. All right. We okay to move to 4 and 5? Oh, we didn't do the, sorry. we got caught up in 3. So in 2, that was about whether or not the schools can build new facilities. Yes, can you pass the mic back? And I'm going to plug up this. Corey, can you plug up this fan?
Okay, DJ, what I wanted to know, on 2, they just want to upgrade the actual facilities. It has nothing to do with the teaching of the children
No.
or anything like that. They just want to build new schools.
Build or renovate, build new schools or renovate new existing schools, but they're saying that the renovations or the building of the new schools are required so that the facilities will be up to date for the students and to attract new teachers is what they're saying.
And it's going to cost 35 years to repay a $500 million bond.
Yeah.
So, and then it's annually, like, I don't know how much in taxes.
Yeah, let's see. Increase our
500
bond
million
obligations by
annually.
$10 billion, which will cost taxpayers estimated $18 billion when repaid with interest. Yeah. Thank you, Corey.
So we spending all this money. They want you to spend all this money on a building, on all these buildings, and they're not teaching our children.
So to chime in, I'll use Compton as an example. In 2015, Measure S, the people passed Measure S. It was a $350 million bond. We will be paying back $999 million on that $350 million bond. And then with how that affects you and the average person is the taxes in the area are going to go up. So your property taxes will increase. And people who rent say it doesn't affect me, but it does. As a property owner's taxes increase, so will your rent. So it's going to affect you, and it only affects you when they sell a bond. So that goes in increments. Like right now, Compton, we've sold 2 bonds. My taxes have gone up on both of my properties, $150 on each property. So it's going to continue to go up. So we do want schools to be nice and renovated. We do. But you're absolutely right. It has nothing to do with, it doesn't go towards teacher salaries or hiring and anything like that. It goes straight for renovating and building. We build a new, if you go into Compton, you'll see the brand new Compton High School. It's beautiful. And it's going to be a state-of-the-art school. Well, it ain't open yet. We don't open until next year. Oh. But it's going to be a state-of-the-art high school. We got 4 high schools in Compton. So now the issue is going to be who we going to let go to this one.
Yeah.
So, and then it's going to take 35 years to repay it. So our children will be paying.
Yeah.
Children
Yeah.
will be paying for this.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure I was reading it right, that it didn't have anything to do with education.
Nothing with the education, just the facility itself. Yeah. Who gonna teach in them? Because the teacher salaries, Yeah. 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 All right. Anything else on 2 or 3? No. Okay. Moving to 4 and 5. All right. So 4 authorizes bond for safe drinking water, wildfire prevention, and protecting communities and natural lands from climate risk. Legislative statute. Authorizes $10 billion in general obligation bonds of water, wildfire prevention, and protection of communities and lands. Requires annual audits. The fiscal impact is increased state costs of about $400 million annually for 40 years to repay the bond. Supporters: Clean Water Action, CAL FIRE firefighters, National Wildlife Federation, the Nature Conservancy. Opponents: Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Looks like they're opposing everything. All right. A yes vote means that the state could borrow $10 billion to fund various activities aimed at conserving natural resources as well as responding to the causes and effects of climate change. A no vote means that the state could not borrow $10 billion to fund various conserving natural resources as well as responding to the causes and effects of climate change. Keep a pin in that. Prop 5, allow local bonds for affordable housing and public infrastructure with 55% voter approval. Legislative constitutional amendment allows approval of local infrastructure of housing bonds for low income and middle income Californians with a 55% vote. Accountability requirements. Fiscal impact: increase local borrowing to fund affordable housing, supportive housing, and public infrastructure. The amount would depend on decisions by local governments and voters. Borrowing would be repaid in higher property taxes. California professional firefighters are for it. League of Women Voters are for it. Habitat for Humanity California are for it. Opponents, California Taxpayers Associations, California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the Women Veterans Alliance. A yes vote means that certain local bonds and related property taxes could be approved with the 55% vote of the local electorate rather than current 2/3 approval requirement. The bonds would have to fund affordable housing, supportive housing, or public infrastructure. A no vote means that certain local bonds or related property taxes will continue to need approval by 2/3 of the electorate vote. Let's go deeper and talk about the pros and the cons. So I'm going back to 6, which was about the water and the borrowing of the money. So the pros of, I'm sorry, thank you. The pros, thank you. Yes on 4, safe drinking water, wildfire prevention, clean air, these are the pros, and protection of natural resources. California firefighters, conservation groups, clean water advocate and urge yes. Accountable, fiscally responsible, independent audits, strict transparency, proactive approach, saves money and prevents the worst impacts of devastating wildfires, smokes, and droughts and pollutions. It sounds like they're saying we'll save money if the disaster happens. All right, so we put the money in advance, and if the disaster happens, we won't spend that much, but we're going to spend a whole bunch at the beginning. Right? The con. Right? Bonds are the most expensive way to fund government spending. Water and wildfire mitigation are necessities, are necessities, not luxuries. They should be budgeted for and not bonded. I like that. Mismanagement led to the crisis. This $10 billion bond would cost taxpayers almost, it says $2 to repay. $2 to pay for every dollar spent. So if they spend $10 billion, we would end up paying $20 billion back, basically. Yeah. Yeah, so the comment on the floor for those of you who are watching online is maybe they should have budgeted for this instead of responding to this crisis in this way and asking us to bond a $10 billion bond that we would end up paying $2. Right, they're asking for bonds for the schools. Now they're asking for bonds for this. They're buried bonds at this point. All right, so it looks like we've got an opinion on 4. Now let's talk pros and cons of 5. Prop 5 shifts local spending priorities away from the state government, giving local voters and taxpayers the choice and tools to address the challenges facing their communities, whether it's housing affordability, safer streets, more fire stations, or other community-driven projects. Prop 5 empowers local voters to solve local problems. That's the one where they're saying they want to move to a 55% electorate as opposed to a 2/3 on that spending. Prop 5, the cons, changes the Constitution to make it easier to change the bond debt, leading to higher property taxes. So Prop 5 shifts the financial burden from the state to local communities, increasing costs for homeowners, renters, and consumers. Politicians wrote loopholes in Prop 5, so infrastructure, quote unquote, can mean just about anything. So infrastructure is a loophole. Okay.
55% of the it would need 55% of the vote, not just a 2/3. Is that right?
Yeah, 2/3.
And the government and the voters get to decide. Someone is not deciding for us.
I think that makes it easier. 2/3, I think, is 66%. So 55% makes it like easier to get it passed. So they're saying like less people would have to say yes in order for this to work. Let me go back. I'll wait till. Let me go back and see what the yes vote says. So a yes on 5 means that certain local bonds and related property taxes could be approved with a 55% vote of the local electorate rather than the current 2/3, which is 66.66%. These bonds would have to fund affordable housing, supportive housing, or public infrastructure. So they're saying if you vote yes, the 55% as opposed to 2/3 will be able to approve the bonds. But if you vote no, related property taxes would continue to need approval by 2/3. So the property taxes can go up with less people voting if you say yes, it sounds like. Anybody have thoughts on this one?
I guess what I was thinking is that this, if you say yes, is giving the voters a right to now vote also,
Yeah.
except instead of having someone just vote for us.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. So for those online, Auntie Vanessa's point is that 55% means that less people would be required, meaning more power is given to the people to say yes and approve whether or not these bonds will be approved. But if these bonds do get approved, what do you call it? Then we do look at higher property taxes, possibly. So I guess the question would be, when that majority votes, do they vote in a way that is beneficial to property owners, to renters? Because, again, they said that infrastructure could mean anything. So if they take out these bonds and say their infrastructure, I'm just making up something at this point, but say the infrastructure is a golf course. Now our taxpayer dollars are paying for that golf course. But if the 55% say yes, then it's cool. Just a little consideration on whether or not we're okay with that loophole in infrastructure. But I see your point in saying it does give more power to the people, to the voters, to decide what they'd like to spend their money on.
So, I mean, that's why I had yes.
Okay.
Because I felt that they can't just pass stuff over us.
Right. Right.
So we have to vote on it also.
Yeah.
So,
let me,
I don't know.
Okay. I was just wondering if the people who are voting, maybe they're not property owners, so they, they're not voting wisely.
yeah. Okay. No, it's not on.
I was going to say it's not going to affect just the property owners, because if you own property and you're renting, say you're renting from an owner, that means the owner is going to go up on the rent to cover the additional cost of these taxes going up.
Yeah. And it lists in the con section, it says increasing costs for homeowners, renters, and consumers. So basically, everybody will be impacted by it if the bond is to increase. So, sure, no problem.
So is it saying, what I'm thinking is that it has to be a measure, for them to be able to do anything. The voters have to vote
Yeah.
for this to be done.
Yeah.
Instead of them just saying we're going to build a golf course.
Right.
So
So you saying you're with it because you see a check and balance.
I have a choice to say, no, I don't want this golf course.
Yeah.
Because it's going to go up and it's going to raise my taxes.
Yeah. Okay.
Then the government just deciding for me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's the way I see it.
Okay.
Okay, so for clarification, the only difference is instead of it being whatever's being passed by a 2/3 vote, now it will only need 55%.
Correct.
But nothing else is going to change, just the amount of the percentage that needs to be voted on in order to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. You still get the choice because it's moving from a 2/3 vote to a 55% vote.
It only requires 55%.
So it says property taxes could be approved with a 55% vote of the local electorate rather than the current 2/3 approval requirement.
So it's just a matter of changing numbers.
Yep. I don't think. I mean, stick with your yes. Let your yes be. I wanted my golf course. Now I don't even know how to play golf. So I'm back at. Hold on. So the cons. I was just about you read my mind. So the cons. Prop 5 changes the Constitution to make it easier to increase bond debt, leading to higher property taxes. So that's the bad part about this. It makes it easier to increase the bond debt. I think that's what that 55% does, because 2/3 is a higher number. So if less people have to approve it, then it's easier to increase bond debt. And then Prop 5 shifts the financial burden from the state to local communities. So instead of the state owing more money, the local communities will owe more money, because it would be our taxes that we're paying, like the interest on the bond.
My question.
Yes, sir.
What is or who is the
The local electorate?
local electorate?
That's a good question. We might need our fact checkers. I'm deputizing Sandra when she finishes eating that ginger to look for.
Because my thought relative to what Vanessa said earlier, if it's the
Local electorate.
Local electorate, I think that speaks of the state, those who vote, who are in office.
Yeah.
Which means we don't get to determine if it's a golf course or whatever.
Yeah.
What we're voting on now is to give them the right to get the bond to make that loan. How they spend it, it'll be determined by them. But our no, gives them the right to do the 55 instead of 2/3, which means they don't need as many of the local electoral in order to make the decision on how they're going to use it. And that, what's that last thing it says? Infrastructure can mean anything. Yeah, once we vote on this,
then
we
they
give
get
them
to
the
pick.
right to vote however,
and
whether
less
it's gonna be
people have to
55.
approve it.
Less people of them.
Yeah, less of them have to approve.
Yeah, we don't have a we don't have a choice on what infrastructure it is.
Yeah. Okay.
But it all depends. That's why I say I'm thinking that the local electorate is the elected officials.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. So that sounds like we would be moving to a no. No. It's no.
Wait.
Okay, wait. Let me go back. Oh, it's a yes. Okay. Thank you. See, and that's why these conversations are important, because you read it and you go back and forth and you go back and forth and if you're by yourself, you might not remember. So we're at yes.
Can I offer a thought?
Yeah, sure.
My thought is any vote that we make to give them the approval to get a bond, we're automatically going to have higher taxes.
Absolutely.
One way or the other.
Absolutely. There's another question on the floor or comment.
But in this situation, the bond will be paid back by the people, by your community. The it's not going to be paid by, but so it will.
They picking what we gonna pay for.
It will affect, what happens in your community based on the amount of the bond and the money that has to be paid back.
Yeah. So let me go back. So just I saw some looks. So it says the con is the Constitution makes it easier to increase bond debt, leading to higher proper taxes. The financial burden shifts from the state to local communities. So yeah, we would end up paying more as opposed to the state paying more, and they would get to approve it. It could be less of them approving it, making a decision for a vast majority, and then the majority paying for the decision that they made. We vote for them. We just vote for the electorate. Let me go back. So it says Related property taxes could be approved with the 55% vote of the local electorate. So the local electorate, the people that, yeah. All right. Let me see. Empowers local. The pros of 5.
I think you have to look at who votes, because a small majority of the people will go out and vote. Say you have 10,000 people in this area, only 3,000 of those people vote or less. So you're depending on a small number of people to make the decision.
Okay.
So I wanted to go back to question the fact check. So the local electorate, I keep messing
That was right.
So Cheryl just showed me electorate. The definition is all of the people entitled to vote in a given election.
Okay.
So then that would mean
us.
the citizens in that local,
Okay.
on a local level. Okay. So that changes.
Cool. Fact check just came in. So Auntie Vanessa is right. We do get the power to vote. Thank you.
But the key is what Sandra just said.
Is who's going to go vote?
Yeah. On a no vote, it's 55% rather than 2/3.
All right. I'm moving off of this one. I'm going to 6. All right. So Prop 6 eliminates constitutional provision allowing involuntary servitude for incarcerated persons. Yeah. So Prop 6 amends the California Constitution to remove the current provision that allows jails and prisons to impose involuntary servitude to punish crime, forcing incarcerated persons to work. Fiscal impact, potential increase or decrease in state and local costs depending on how work for people in state prison and county jail changes. Any effect would likely not exceed tens of millions of dollars annually. Supporters, Assembly Member Lori Wilson. Who is Lori? Opponents, none submitted. Nobody was opposing it. Okay. What a yes vote means, they do work, but they work for a small portion of money. Like, yeah, it's like slave labor, but it ain't slavery like they talking. Yeah.
Ma'am, I'm already incarcerated. So now you're going to make me work for 7 cents an hour.
But not on this proposition. It's saying not even the 7 cents.
The 7 cents. So I say,
it's like
heck no.
Free labor.
Involuntary servitude is what they're saying.
Involuntary servitude.
That's like
That's a
you
slave.
doing
You
it
gonna
as a
serve me and
slave.
you did not volunteer to do it.
Servitude has a time frame to it too. You know, when the white folks were indentured servants, they only served for 7 years.
Okay, so let me read what a yes means. A yes vote on this measure means involuntary servitude would not be allowed as punishment for crime. State prisons would not be allowed to discipline people in prison who refuse to work. A no vote on this measure means involuntary servitude would continue to be allowed as punishment for crime. What they mean by continue? Yeah, hold on. My. Let's undo. So a yes vote means that they would not be allowed to punish people by forcing them to work and not be able to discipline them if they refuse to do it. I don't think we have to go back and talk on that one. It's blowing your mind, right?
It's blowing my mind. No, I never been incarcerated, so they never in jail. You have an option to work.
Mom, you want?
Yeah, sometimes they, our trustees, they tell them that they can do it and they give them certain privileges, if they do the work for them. It gives them, maybe take some time off of their sentence, things like that. Or sometimes they like to be, in the public and they want to come out of their cell. So some of them go ahead and work for them.
I've seen some times where like they might get extra time on the yard or they get to work outdoors. Sometimes the work that they do is outside of the prison walls. Like it might be like they might be working like in forestry on the freeway, putting out fires. So they get some time outside. So it's like a trade-off for them.
And people need to understand jails and prisons are two different animals. Yeah. When you get arrested, you go to the jail. You stay in the jail until you go through the court process and get sentenced, and then you go to prison. Yeah. Twin Towers is jail. Yes.
Yeah.
Now you're getting time served when you're in jail, where they didn't used to give you credit until you actually hit prison. Right. But now they get time served. Like if your sentence is 20 years and you were in county jail for a year, the judge can give you a year or 2 years time credit off your maximum confinement term of 20 years.
Awesome. I'm moving on to 32 because I think we did good on 6. So 32. Raises the minimum wage initiative statute. We've been talking about this for more. I'll come back to that. I'll save my 2 cents for after y'all 2 cents. Raise minimum wage allows for employers with 26 or more employees to $17 immediately and $18 on January 1st, 2025. For employers with 25 or fewer employees to $17 on January 1st, 2025, and $18 on January 1st, 2026. The fiscal impact is that state and local government costs would increase or decrease by up to the hundreds of millions of dollars annually. State and local revenues would likely decrease by no more than a few $100 million annually. Supporters, none submitted. Opponents, California Chamber of Commerce, California Restaurant Association, California Grocers Association. All the people that's hiring people don't want to get no more money. So what is a yes vote? A yes vote means that this measure, the state minimum wage would be $18 per hour in 2026. After that, it would go up each year based on how fast prices go up. And we see how fast they go up. A bag of chips be $3. Ain't nothing in there but air. You get 2 Doritos and H2O. All right. A no vote means that the state minimum wage likely would be about $17 per hour in 2026. After that, it would go up each year based on how fast prices are going up. Still based on how fast prices are going up. Let's look at the pros and cons of that one. Hold on a second. So the pros. Was there a question before I go to pros and cons?
Not necessarily a question, but the matter we just discussed, 6, was that the
that was
no, never mind.
No? Okay. No problem. If it comes back, please feel free. Okay, so pros on 32. Yes, on Proposition 32 raises the minimum wage to $18. So more service, essential, and other workers and single moms can afford the state's cost of living. Corporate profit margins increased by 100% since 2000 because corporations spiked the price of goods. Yes, on Prop 32, so workers can afford life's basic needs, is what they're saying. The cons say Prop 32 was written by one multimillionaire alone, and he wrote a horribly flawed measure. Are they mudslinging here? Prop 32 increases the cost of living, eliminates jobs, makes our state and local government deficit worse, and makes California's complex minimum wage laws even harder for businesses and workers to understand. So they want you to say no. Yeah. So it sounds like the consensus in the room for online is people are considering yes in raising the minimum wage, and there are some thoughts coming to us. It looks like some dissenting thoughts coming to us.
I say no, because these minimum wage jobs, I mean, what it does is it forces the businesses to raise taxes yet again on the consumer. We're going to be taxed yet again because the prices are going to go higher because they have to pay more to their salaries. So, and minimum wage jobs, in my opinion, were really for kids, McDonald's and things like that. But unfortunately, you have adults who are working those jobs and taking those jobs from kids. You go to McDonald's, you see older people working there versus the kids who I thought those jobs were typically, when we were kids, that's where we worked. So that's a no for me.
No problem. Thank you. One more.
So this minimum wage is not going to include fast food restaurants because fast food restaurants are already atop that. They're $20. So those kids that was working at McDonald's and all of those, they already making more than what minimum wage right now is 15 something, 17 something. Yeah, so it going up is not going to affect the fast food. They going to stay where they are. So we already paying for that. So we going to, no matter what we do, we're going to continue to pay for all of these things. We want to make it better, but minimum wage, nobody can afford to live off of minimum wage.
No, not a one.
So we're trying to make it a little more comfortable for those single parents who unfortunately might not have that family background. So that's why I would be a yes for that, to try to help those out there.
Cool. I think there's another comment coming from the floor.
Online,
Okay.
Melba Stewart says this is for the minimum wage that you're 32, right?
32, yeah.
So she says, her comment is, they raised the cost of living and then cut the hours so that employees have no health benefits, etc. It's a lose-lose deal.
I will say from experience as a former retail manager, when you're looking for like those benefits and things like that, I used to be instructed to hire more employees, and instead of giving 8-hour shifts, I would give them 4.5-hour shifts so that they would have to clock out before getting a paid lunch. So after that 4.5 hours, instead of scheduling one person for 8 hours, I would schedule 2 people at 4.5 hours so that I get an extra hour of work and nobody is getting paid for the lunch. So that's how retail accounts for those things. Yeah. Yeah, but they don't, no benefits, because I'm scheduling you for 4.5-hour shifts 5 days a week. You working 23 hours, and you need 37.5 to get benefits, or if I recall correctly. Yeah. There's another comment, I see it brewing.
Nikki Irvin says business owners don't want it because their bottom line will decrease and they will start laying off workers and offer no benefits.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Cool. So, yeah, I guess this one, it seems like we are split in the House on yes or no. So yes means we would increase the minimum wage, and there are a couple that are still saying no, don't do it. And those are probably like more the business owners in the building. So I don't have any employees under my belt, so I'm saying give them a couple of dollars, but I don't have any employees. Yeah. Okay. Are we good to move on to 33 and 34? All right. We're almost there. We just got 33, 34, 35, and 36, and we'll be able to open up for any additional dialogue and or if you decide you want to go make you a sandwich somewhere. All right. But it's kind of 9 o'clock now, or 8 o'clock. It's 8:15. All right. So it's not too late for me. I'm going to go eat. And that's why I'm carrying this spare tire. All right. 33 expands local government authority to enact rent control on residential property. And the initiative statute. I hear the homeowners breathing hard. So it repeals the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act of 1995, which currently prohibits local ordinances limiting initial residential rental rates for new tenants or rent increases for existing tenants in certain residential properties. The fiscal impact is a reduction in local property tax revenues of at least tens of millions of dollars annually, due likely to the expansion of rent control in some communities. Supporters: California Nurses Association, California Alliance of Retired Americans, Mental Health Advocacy, Coalition for Economic Survival, and Tenants Together. Opponents: California Council of Affordable Housing, Women Veterans Alliance, California Chamber of Commerce. A yes vote means that state law would not limit the kinds of rent control laws cities and counties have. A no vote means that state law would continue to limit the kinds of rent control laws that cities would have. Put a pin in there. We'll talk 34, and then we'll go pros and cons. 34, restricts spending of prescription drug revenues by certain healthcare providers. Requires certain providers to spend 98% of revenues from federal discount prescription drug program on direct patient care. Authorizes statewide negotiation of Medi-Cal drug prices. The fiscal impact is increased state costs, likely in the millions of dollars annually, to enforce new rules of certain healthcare entities. Affected entities would pay fees to cover these costs. Supporters: the ALS Association, California Chronic Care Coalition, Latino Heritage, Los Angeles. Opponents: National Org for Women, Consumer Watchdog, Coalition for Economic Survival, AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and Dolores Huerta. What a yes vote means. A yes vote on 34 means that certain healthcare entities would have to follow new rules about how they spend revenue that they earn from a federal drug discount program. Breaking these rules could result in penalties, such as not being able to operate as a healthcare entity, generally for a 10-year period. A no vote means these rules would not go into effect. I don't want to say much about that. I'm going to read the pros and cons. So for 33, back to the tenants and the rent control, basically. All right. God bless you all online. The pro says, the rent is too damn high. 1 million people have left California. Rent control in America has worked to keep people in their homes since 1919. California's 17 million renters need relief. Homeowners and taxpayers benefit from stable communities. The California dream is dying. You can help save it. I don't know why I'm seeing the two girls from Bella Noche on Instagram right now. If you can't go to Bella Noche, then where can you go? It's a long story. If you haven't seen it, it's funny. Yeah. Corey, you with me. The cons. Don't be fooled by the latest corporate landlord anti-housing scheme. They mad about this one. California voters have rejected this radical proposal twice before because it would freeze the construction of new housing and could effectively reverse dozens of new state housing laws. All right? So, I think I'm going to pause there before we go to 34 because it seemed like it could be fruitful. Any thoughts? We got one here.
So, my boss and I were talking about this before I left today, and because I told him we were kind of having this forum here, and he was like, "Ooh, Keisha, 33 is tricky. It's going to unravel what's already in place for some areas and cause a bigger problem if this is if the yes measure goes forth."
Okay.
I am confused about this measure.
Okay.
If anybody has any opinions or I don't know.
Let's see. So the law currently prohibits local ordinances limiting initial residential rates for new tenants or rent increases for existing tenants. So it prohibits local ordinances limiting initial. So Yeah, it is too many words. The fiscal impact: reduction in local property tax revenues of at least tens of millions. Okay, that don't really say nothing. So a yes would mean that the state law would not limit the kinds of rent control laws that cities and counties have. A no measure means that state would continue. So if you're saying it would unravel something, no might be the way, because it says state law would continue to limit the kinds of rent control laws that cities and counties have. And then let's go back to the pros. The pros say, I'm gonna skip over that expletive this time. 1 million people have left California. Rent control in America has worked to keep people in their homes since 1919. California's 17 million renters need relief. Homeowners and taxpayers benefit from stable communities. Yeah, they do. So they're saying that rent control keeps people in their house. Is what they're saying for 33. And if you got the people in the, if they know what they're gonna pay, they'll stay, and you can have a tenant. That's what they're saying are the pros. The cons say, don't be fooled. We rejected this twice. It would freeze construction of new housing, and that's kind of where I'm like, what? Freeze construction of new housing and could effectively reverse dozens of new state housing laws. That's kind of where I got a problem, because we need additional housing in my mind. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I hear you.
We're not worried about new housing. We're worried about where we are right now.
Yeah, make sure that you don't end up outside with the people that's outside. Yeah, you're right. Hey, neighbor. Yeah. Okay.
So it's like, gotta worry about
Yeah,
right now.
like maintain some stability.
Yes.
Yeah. So a yes would mean that we maintain the stability, keep the rent controls the way that they are. Is that no? Yeah, because a no says it would not change. Okay.
But I thought right now there's really no rent control.
There's,
Well, it depends on where you
it depends
live.
where you live. What?
Yeah, where you live. So then if we would want it to control.
Yeah, so if we say yes, then they would not, California would say, not even in your city or your county, you can't do it, because California is now saying you don't get to control it. So if we say yes, California is saying you don't get rent control. Is that correct?
If we say yes, we don't get rent control.
Yeah, let's double check. A yes means that state law would not limit the kinds of rent controls. So, see, that's where it's confusing. A yes means that it would not limit. So a no means that it would limit rent controls.
What do you mean by limit? Does that mean so like Proposition 13 was a law that was enacted where, like, if your mother had a house, it was your taxes stayed at a certain level, but if they gave it to you, you gave it to your kids, it would increase. And then it says the Costa-Hawkins Act is the Rental Housing Act, which was passed in 1995. It placed limits on the ability of local government to enact rent controls. Specifically, it exempted single-family homes, condominiums, and post-1995 construction from rental control. And this, it says it currently prohibits local ordinances limiting. See, I'm confused.
So go ahead, Pastor.
One of the pieces of language in the yes, I think, is very tricky.
It is.
It should not say anything about homeowners and taxpayers, because that statement, homeowners and taxpayers, want a stable for homeowners and taxpayers mean that those who are renting stay in the community. And so I don't think that should be said. That, to me, that's deceptive. If you say yes, then you're changing the present rent limit that the state has it's already limited rent.
And I think that's where the trick is, and would not limit. Like,
yeah, well, to not limit, which means the state is saying there's no limit, there's no rent control.
Right.
And so now the renters, they'll be able to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah. The
That's
homeowners.
a yes.
The homeowners.
Well, okay, so I don't want to use the term homeowners. I want to use property owners. Okay. Property owners, because homeowners don't necessarily rent all the time. Not all homeowners.
Okay.
So I think it's the property owners.
Okay.
Yeah, landlords.
Yeah, okay.
They won't have any rent limit.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want to.
Whatever they want to. If it's a yes.
If it's a yes.
If it's a yes. Because yes is changing the present law.
Eulalia says rent control in Santa Monica only. LA says you could only go up a small percentage annually.
That's still control.
Yeah. Send me a picture of yours when you get done. Yeah, because I'm not marking mine because I'm up here talking.
I say no. I say no. Leave it as it is.
Yeah. I think I do. Yeah.
Yes.
I say no. All right, back to 34. We was in there on this 30. Okay, so back to the healthcare and yes. So a yes would mean that certain healthcare entities would have to follow new rules about how they spend their revenue and earn from federal drug discount programs, and that breaking that rule can mean that they cannot operate as a healthcare entity for about 10 years. Let's talk pros and cons. Did we do that already? No. Okay. So pros and cons. Pro for 34 would be protect patients and ensure public health care dollars actually go to patients who need it. Prop 34 will close the loophole that allows corporations to spend money on things like buying stadium naming rights and multi-million-dollar CEO salaries. Prop 34, the Revenge Initiative, California Apartment Association, representing billionaire corporate landlords, doesn't care about patients. Their sole purpose is silencing AIDS Healthcare Foundation, the sponsor of Rent Control Initiative. 34 weaponizes the ballot and is a threat to democracy and opens the door to attacks on any nonprofit. These people are funny. They are so funny. Okay, so it kind of sounds like yes to me. Yeah, it kind of sounds like yes.
I said they need to look into some of these health facilities because the patients aren't getting the health care that they need. And now that they know they can lose their license for 10 years, I bet you things are going to look much better.
They will. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It won't be smelling.
Yeah.
Just because she's online, I want to just step back just a minute to 33.
Yeah.
Peggy, Mama Peggy.
Hey, Mama Peggy.
Tony's mother. She's in Inglewood, and Inglewood has no rent control.
Boy, oh boy. And with them stadiums?
So what I'm saying is, I wanted to say that because, so she says, so you're saying we should have rent control. We're saying yes, but that's something that the city of Inglewood is going to have to see how they can legislate that as an individual city. But the state already says you can limit it. Inglewood chooses not to. So there's something that the city has to do in order to try to put a limit, put a limit in place.
And capped it? I don't know how to look into that. Yeah, okay.
And then, Karen would no limit rent. Oh, okay.
They did. What, Morningside? Yeah. They're closing down schools. Didn't off of Doty? Cause Cecil used to work there. The school Cecil. I'm not talking Woolworth. I can't think of the name of it. Yeah. Oh, online we're talking about the fact that Inglewood has closed several schools. So we were talking about rent control, and we were talking about how there are no caps on there, and basically sounds like they are trying to recoup some of the money from the stadiums that they're building, and it sounds like people are having to move out of that area. Schools are closing, so there's been the cost of living increase has had an adverse impact on the people that are living there, either costing them to have to leave for lack of ability to pay or lack of basic needs resources like education. Looks like another mic. I don't know. Yeah, we were saying yes on 34.
I was asking,
No on 33, yeah.
I was asking, what can we do? What can be done so Inglewood can get rent control, because they got like a lot going on over there. 2 stadiums and a movie theater, a concert venue, and
Don't be telling folks about my movie theater. That's my movie theater.
and the fact that they close schools. Like, really? Where are these kids going to go to school?
Right. We're building stadiums.
And we're building stadiums,
Yeah.
but taken away from schools.
They want them to go get a job at the stadium.
And I want to say that the people who live in Inglewood, they can't even afford to even go to the stadiums in their neighborhoods. They can't even enjoy them because it's so expensive.
Yeah, and sometimes loud and the parking is bad. But another thing I wanted to say about those stadiums, I forgot. So I'll come back when it comes back to me. I forgot that quickly. Yeah, I forgot. Okay. Moving right along. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Thank you, Sandra, for saying that. Can you say that in the mic?
This is a prime example of why you need to vote for your local government. People are talking about the president, and yes, that's important, but your local government is what affects your life every day. Your mayors, your council people. If you have a council person with whom you can't touch, then that person should not be in that position. Yeah. If you, Mayor Butts being the mayor of Inglewood, who's bringing in all these businesses, which does stimulate the economy there, but also if you're pricing people out of housing, then that's a negative. So you gotta be involved in your local election.
Thank you for saying that. That was what I was going to say to the question that came on how can Inglewood, work to get those things. It comes in our local elections by voting in people who will represent us on a regular basis.
Vonnie said, tell them to go to your local town hall meetings. That's when right. Your local officials are having a town hall meeting, that is your opportunity to do one-on-one with them, to ask the pertinent questions that affect you directly, your water bill, your gas bill, things of those natures. Anything, your trees not being trimmed, all those things are what your local government are responsible for doing in your community. So go to those town halls when they're having them.
Those were my first jobs out of college, working for a California State Assemblyman and then organizing town hall meetings for a local nonprofit. So they do bring people out there that do listen, and we rally and advocate and put legislation in place. Great suggestion, Mom, and thank you, Sandra, for elaborating.
And election time is the best time because they want to be reelected. So you go out there and you ask them for these things, they don't give them, you can, and one person represents 100 people. So, if you're saying something, you're likely are representing other people. So election time is a great time to talk to your elected officials.
Awesome. Last two. All right. Props 35 and 36. Provides permanent funding for Medi-Cal healthcare services. Makes repayment, that's not what that word says. Makes permanent the existing tax on managed healthcare insurance plans, which, if approved by the federal government, provides revenues to pay for Medi-Cal health care services. The fiscal impact is short-term state costs between roughly $1 billion and $2 billion annually to increase funding for certain health programs. Total funding increase between roughly $2 billion and $5 billion annually. Unknown long-term fiscal effects. That doesn't sound great. Supporters: Planned Parenthood, affiliates of California, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, American Academy of Pediatrics, and opponents none submitted. Thank God I can read. These are some words in here. All right. What a yes vote means. A yes vote on this measure means an existing state tax on health plans. An existing state tax on health plans that provides funding for certain health programs would become permanent. New rules would direct how the state must use the revenue. A no vote on the measure means an existing state tax on health plans would end in 2027 unless the legislature continues it. The new rules would not become law. We'll put a pin in that. Let's go 36. Allows felony charges and increases sentences for certain drug and theft crimes. Initiative statute. No. No. Let me see what it says before I say no. Allows felony charges for possessing certain drugs and or thefts under $950. Y'all just trying to wrangle people up. If defendant has, this is making me upset before I even read it. If defendant has 2 prior drug or theft convictions, fiscal impact, state criminal justice costs likely ranging from several tens of millions of dollars to low hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Local crime justice costs likely in tens of millions of dollars annually. Supporters, crime victims of United of California, California District Attorneys Association, Family Business Association of California. Opponents, Diana Becton, District Attorney, Contra Costa County. Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. A yes vote on this measure means that people convicted of certain drug or theft crimes could receive increased punishment, such as longer prison sentences in certain cases. Who possess illegal drugs, people who possess legal drugs would be required to complete treatment to serve up to 3 years in prison. A no vote on this punishment means on this measure, means punishment for drugs and theft crimes will remain the same. Pros and cons, let's go to 35 and then we'll come back to 36. Yeah, agreed. 35 and 36. Am I on the right ones?
So I had a question about this.
I think I put the wrong slide here, but I'll go to it.
So for 35, is this for Medi-Cal health services or is this for all other private insurances?
Let me go to, I got to go to it in my book because I put the wrong thing on the slide. This is 35 we're looking for? Okay, that's on page 52 of this book. Thank God I brought the book up here. All right. So, a lot of words. Yeah, look on page 9. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Pros and cons of 35. Yes, addresses our urgent healthcare crisis by securing dedicated funding without raising taxes to protect access primary. For those of you guys who are online, there's an error in the slide. Please forgive me. I'm reading it to you now. So again, I'll start. Yes on 35 addresses our urgent healthcare crisis by securing dedicated funding without raising taxes to protect access to primary and specialty care, community clinics, hospitals, ERs, family planning, and mental health providers. Prop 35 prevents the state from redirecting funds for non-healthcare purposes. All right, and the cons is no cons against it. It were submitted. Any thoughts there?
I said yes to the new rules to make sure that the hospital and the clinics and the ER, are getting what they need. I don't really know what they need.
I think I say yes too, Auntie Vanessa, because it says like these are the existing laws, and it talks about making sure that it prevents the state from redirecting funds. But it's the existing laws, and if we vote no, then in 2027 it'll fizzle out. And then they'll have to the legislatures will have to put it up again. So if it's working now, if we think that the checks and balances that they have without raising these taxes and protecting primary and specialty care facilities is working, if we say yes, it makes it permanent. And if we say no, then we got to start from the drawing board again, it sounds like to me.
And that's my dilemma. When you say permanent, that's a long time.
Yeah,
Anything can happen,
Yeah, in a long time.
And we stuck with it forever. So
is anything really permanent though?
Well, I guess they could just put another law in, I guess.
Yeah.
But that somebody need to.
See, what is managed health care? That preventive is that preventive stuff? I mean, are we paying for gender sex changes and things like that? Because we do pay for that.
Yeah. Where you see managed health care at, I'm looking for it.
The one making permanent the existing tax on managed health care insurance plans. See, that's what these words that they playing on. What are you trying to say?
They're saying something very specific. We just
Right.
don't know the code.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know what managed health care means.
Well, is it the subsidiaries of Medi-Cal, like the Kaiser, the Aetna, the Blue Cross? Wouldn't that be managed health care?
Let me see. Managed.
To
Oh, okay, I see.
it says there are three primary types of managed care plans: HMO, PPO, and POS.
Yeah. Okay,
These are
cool.
managed care delivery services. This is from Vonnie and somebody online, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
see
did
it
the
too.
fact check. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I got PPO, so hold on. Let me see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm yes. I need to. I'm going right on down to the medical center. Yeah, I'm yes. Okay, and then last one, 36. A yes vote on this means that people convicted of certain drug theft crimes could receive increased punishment, such as longer prison sentences in certain cases. People who possess illegal drugs would be required to complete treatment and to serve up to 3 years in prison. A no vote means punishment for drug and theft crimes will remain the same. I'm going to be a no on this one. Yeah. 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 And for a $950 drug, there's people in prison right now on a third strike for these minimal drug crimes that they got years and years ago. Right. So they can put them to involuntary servitude for that $950 that they spent was selling.
So this is a tricky one for me
Okay.
because people who are out here committing crimes know that if you steal something that's under $950, that's a
They for sure do.
misdemeanor. They know that. The smash and grabs, they know that. If you steal something under $950, it's a misdemeanor. You go to $951, it's now felony. I'm going to give you an example of a young lady, two young ladies. One I just talked to last week. She went to Nordstrom's. And she said to me, as I was talking to her about what type of probation I'm going to put her on, she was telling me, well, my friend's sister said that if I don't steal over $950, I can't get in trouble. I said, but are you not in the probation office?
Surprise.
You're in trouble. Then I have another young lady who was 17 when she first started the smash and grabs. She is now in jail because she continued to smash and grab. She got arrested 10 different times now that she turned 18. Yeah, her bail is now $300,000 because she continued it because she knew if she does not go over $950 each time. So for me, it's like after 2 times, come on.
Yeah.
You need to, there is no lesson. It's a misdemeanor. You're going to get a citation,
And
go
you're
to
on your
court,
way.
a slap on the wrist, and you're on your way.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this just says, if you're third time, you keep doing this. You need to, right now, there's nothing we do to people who are doing this.
But it don't say like a third time though.
It says, allow felony charges for possessing, and my thing is the certain drugs.
Exactly. That's where I'm at.
What are the certain drugs? Marijuana is not illegal.
It's legal now. Well, in
But
California.
not in federal. Well,
Yeah.
the federal and the state are kind of they're not the same. So it says if defendants have 2 prior drug or theft convictions. So I'm kind of like,
Okay, let me go back to 2 prior. Let me see.
they do under 950, they could serve 3 years in prison. Well, that doesn't say 3 times.
I say vote your conscience on this because we're right. We know black and brown get charges a lot heavier, but I'm just sick of all these snatch and grabbers who are not having any consequences. They're walking in stores knowing that. One kid told the security, what you gonna do? You know, because he knew they were not supposed to touch him. So so vote your.
They do know that. They know you can't touch them. They know they have to get over the threshold before they can be detained. Otherwise, it'll be like a kidnapping or a trespass or something like that. Actually, I worked for one particular agency. They were so petty. We had a thief that we called the Cookie Monster because every day he would come in and steal milk and cookies every single day on his break at work. And they let him steal milk and cookies till it was $951 and they went and got him. Yeah. So, the people know the rules, and they do play with them. But I am concerned about the disproportionate punitive action on black and brown bodies. So, I think I'm gonna go with the vote your conscience on this one. I can't get a pair of socks out of Target without getting somebody to unlock them. Shut the front door. Yeah. If she make up her face good enough, they might not know it's her. Yeah. Yeah. And I need them oatmeal cookies. And the snickerdoodles and the brown. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's wild.
People are taking shopping carts. Wow. I was in Food for Less and the guy had a basket of food, shopping, and walked right the heck out of the doggone store.
She's doing it.
Oh.
Karen, you're going to do number 36 says, I don't know what 36 will allow prosecutors to combine the value of items stolen from multiple thefts and increase accountability for serial thieves. Can Sandra speak on this?
Yeah, I was just talking. Oh, yeah, that is what I was talking about. Like when people are stealing things like all the time. So, like I was saying, how that individual got accustomed to stealing the same thing. They didn't think that they were caught, but this measure would allow for them to put that 3 years of time on this. Well, I guess he would need the priors first.
If it's a yes, you mean?
If it was a yes,
but that also means that if it's 950.
So if it's 950 or under, then and he doesn't have the 2 priors, then he would not get the punishment that Measure 36 is saying. But if he has the 2 priors and he gets to 951, that's up to 3 years, and yeah, all the things that he's been stealing all along, they can put it together. Like if you stole 650 this time and 350 that time, and you already got them 2 priors.
I think this will really stop them and deter them from doing it because they know if I get to 949, I can't get in trouble, and I keep doing 949. And they know, I'm telling you, they know. The little girl said, well, my friend said that he's still over 950. I said, well, aren't you here in probation right now?
Well, stupid question. Has the new situation of no, whatever, has that increased crimes?
Heck yeah. I mean, I work in Harbor now. I work in the, Torrance. My office, when I first got there 4 years ago, my deputies probably had 10 kids on their caseload. Now they have, I think I'm at 102 in Torrance. And those are on probation. And my investigator is doing 5 reports a week. So yeah, they were doing 2 a month. Now they're doing 5 a week.
I also think.
For car theft, for GTA, it's now a misdemeanor. So now you have all these cars being stolen because they're not doing no serious jail time for it.
No time. I had a 14-year-old. He stole 8 cars. 8 cars, and within 3 months, he was 14. So we don't incarcerate 14-year-olds. We do, but we don't. So he's 14, and so yeah, 8 cars, and he crashed into 3. So his restitution is going to be high, but he's on probation. But my point is he continued to do it because he knew there wasn't going to be no consequences. If there are no consequences, the crime ain't going to stop. So I agree with what you're saying about the black and brown, but I think it'll deter them because they're telling the attitude is ain't nothing going to happen.
And it does have to be something. I guess this would lead to conversations of picking people in our local elections and voting on local measures to impact policy at a long term, as opposed to, right? Because I do believe that there should be accountability. And I do believe that, as my grandma would say, you don't believe fat meat greasy. You're going to have to find out one way or another. But I don't know that I agree to this the way right now, right here. But yeah. Not for the white folks, they're not. But the... Okay, it is 8:52, and I am going to thank those of you who have joined us online, and for those of you guys here, if you would like to convene to talk about your local judges, we will release you to do that. Thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for participating.
Pat said, could you go back to 2?
To number 2? Okay, I can go to 2 right quick for Pat. Vote your conscience on. Okay, wait, there was a request before we go on number 2. So number 2 was authorizes bonds for public school and community colleges facilities. A yes would mean that the state could borrow $10 billion to build new or renovate existing public school and community colleges. A no vote would mean that the state could not borrow $10 billion to build new or renovate existing public school or community facilities. I believe that we went to say no on this because it was a bond of $500 million paid for 35 years that we would have to pay back and lots of interest. And also it's just for the facilities and not for the educators or the curricula, just for the buildings themselves. So we said no on that one was the choice in this room, but you're welcome to vote your consciences on that. All right. Again, thank you for joining us online, and thank you for coming out. Those of you in the building, God bless you.
I release, and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. My heart is open wide. I'm only here for God. I am only here for God. No more struggle.